Hi there. Lillian Carter never imagined that one chance encounter in a school hallway would completely change her life. Just yesterday, she was a model wife and a caring mother, confident in the stability of her world. But today, she stands on the edge of a forbidden choice. But before you get comfortable, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And let me know in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is where you are. I'd love to see who's joined us. Now settle in and get cozy. We're about to begin. Lillian Carter had always been the picture of elegance. Even as she stood in her sunlit kitchen, pouring coffee into her favorite pastel mug, she looked as though she belonged in a glossy magazine. Tall and graceful, she had long silky blonde hair that cascaded over her shoulders, often styled into soft waves. Her green eyes sparkled with curiosity and mischief, framed by delicate lashes. Lillian's body was a gentle hourglass, her waist slim, her hips feminine, her breasts full but natural, fitting her frame perfectly. She favored soft, form-fitting dresses in pale shades, like the creamy wrap dress she wore this morning, hugging her body just enough to draw the eye. Underneath, she liked delicate lace lingerie. Today, a matching ivory set with a subtle floral pattern. She loved the secret thrill of beautiful underwear, even when no one else would see it. Her husband James was a good man. Tall with a broad chest and kind brown eyes, he radiated reliability and comfort. Their daughter Emily was 9, curious and chatty, always with a book in hand and 1,000 questions for the world. Their life was steady, sometimes a little too steady, the days running together like pearls on a string. On that particular morning, Lillian's life shifted just a fraction. Emily had forgotten her math folder for school. With a soft laugh, Lillian pulled on a pair of pale pumps, grabbed the folder, and set off for the school, enjoying the feel of the cool morning breeze against her legs. She liked the way the dress moved with her, brushing softly against her thighs. The school was a red brick building surrounded by maples, alive with the voices of children. As she entered the office, she caught sight of someone unfamiliar. The man was speaking with the secretary, his posture relaxed, his smile genuine. He was striking, perhaps in his early 30s, tall, with dark hair swept back carelessly. His eyes were an intense shade of blue, almost crystalline, and his jaw was dusted with the faintest shadow of stubble. He wore a crisp white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows and fitted charcoal pants that hinted at a runner's physique. When he laughed, dimples appeared on his cheeks, boyish and inviting. "Excuse me," Lillian said softly, and the man turned to her, his gaze resting on her with a subtle, appreciative warmth. She felt a sudden flutter in her stomach. "I'm looking for Mrs. Klein's class. My daughter forgot her folder," she explained, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "That's just down the hall," he said, his voice low and pleasant. "I'm Ethan Turner, the new music teacher." He held out a strong, elegant hand. She took it, and a brief electric current passed between them. "Lillian Carter," she replied, her cheeks warming. Their hands lingered a moment longer than necessary. Lillian found herself glancing at his hands, the way his fingers curled around hers. For a moment, the world seemed quieter, as if time had paused just for them. "I hope Emily enjoys music this year," Ethan added, his eyes twinkling. Maybe you will too. Lillian smiled, her heart beating a little faster. She handed the folder to the secretary and left, but she couldn't resist one last glance over her shoulder. Ethan was watching her, his lips curved in a secret smile. The rest of the day, she found herself thinking of Ethan's eyes, the warmth of his handshake. It was a silly crush, she told herself, harmless, fleeting. Still, when James came home that night, Lillian greeted him with unusual brightness, kissing him on the cheek and lingering close as they prepared dinner. James looked at her with a little surprise and pleasure, and she realized she hadn't felt this giddy in years. The next day, Lillian found herself wondering if she might run into Ethan again. Emily's school was only a 10-minute drive away. Was there anything else she could drop off? She dismissed the thought, scolding herself for acting like a schoolgirl. Yet the temptation lingered. A week passed before another opportunity presented itself. Emily forgot her lunch. Lillian dressed carefully, choosing a soft lilac dress that complemented her hair, and the same lacy set of lingerie that made her feel secretly daring. She brushed her hair to a glossy sheen and added a touch of perfume, just enough to be noticed up close. As she walked into the school, her heels clicked lightly on the polished floors. This time, Ethan was standing in the hallway, talking with a group of students. He looked up and saw her, a smile lighting his face. "Twice in 1 week?" he teased, stepping closer. "Are you sure you don't just like our cafeteria food?" His eyes flickered to her dress, lingering for a heartbeat. Lillian laughed, brushing imaginary dust from her skirt. "Maybe I do. Or maybe I just like the music teacher." They stood in the hallway for a few minutes, their conversation light and flirtatious. When a student walked by, Ethan stepped closer, lowering his voice, his tone playful but intimate. Lillian felt a warmth spreading through her, a sweet ache in her chest. On the drive home, Lillian replayed every word, every smile. She knew she was treading dangerous ground, but she couldn't help herself. There was something about Ethan, a spark, a thrill she had forgotten she could feel. That evening, after James and Emily were asleep, Lillian drew herself a bath. The warm water soothed her skin, and as she closed her eyes, her thoughts drifted inevitably to Ethan. His strong hands, his teasing smile, the way his gaze slid down her body. She let herself imagine, for just a moment, what it would feel like if his hands traced the delicate lace of her lingerie, if his lips brushed her neck. Her skin tingled with anticipation, her breath quickening as her imagination danced with possibility. The fantasy was innocent enough, just a whisper of something forbidden, something new. Afterwards, as she slipped between crisp sheets, Lillian felt more alive than she had in years. She drifted to sleep with a secret smile on her lips, knowing this was only the beginning. The days that followed seemed wrapped in an exciting haze. Lillian found herself inventing reasons to visit the school, and each time she did, the anticipation fluttered in her chest. She noticed things she had never bothered to observe before. The rhythm of children's laughter echoing in the halls. The way sunlight streamed through the wide school windows. And most of all, the subtle changes in herself. At home, James was as devoted as ever. But Lillian felt their life had slipped into a comfortable routine. His affection was gentle, familiar, safe. She loved him, she reminded herself. But there was something electric in the attention she felt from Ethan Turner. It was a thrill that made her cheeks flush and her heart beat faster. And it unsettled her in ways she didn't fully understand. During her next visit, Lillian lingered near the office longer than necessary. She wore a pale blue blouse tucked into a fitted pencil skirt. Her hair styled into loose curls. Her lingerie was a pale rose set, delicate and smooth against her skin. She loved how the soft fabric hugged her curves, the way her skirt accentuated the curve of her hips and the roundness of her bottom. She caught glimpses of herself in the windows and wondered if Ethan would notice the effort. As she waited, another woman approached. Jessica Moore, the mother of one of Emily's classmates. Jessica was striking in her own way, shorter than Lillian with rich chestnut hair pulled back into a neat ponytail and bright hazel eyes. She wore a stylish fitted dress in emerald green, highlighting her athletic figure and narrow waist. Her figure was toned, her breasts high and firm, her bottom round and compact. Her confidence radiated as she smiled at Lillian. "Dropping something off again?" Jessica teased, arching an eyebrow. "Or are you just here for the view?" Lillian flushed, caught off guard. But Jessica's smile was conspiratorial rather than judgmental. Before Lillian could answer, Ethan appeared from around the corner, his gaze flicking from Jessica to Lillian, pausing just a moment longer on Lillian. "Ladies," he greeted, voice warm and easy. "Always a pleasure to see parents so invested." Jessica laughed, shaking her head. "If only all the teachers were as charming as you, Mr. Turner." Ethan grinned, but it was Lillian's eyes he sought. "Can I help you with something, Mrs. Carter?" Lillian handed over a book Emily had forgotten, but her fingers brushed Ethan's as she did. For a fleeting instant, electricity surged between them, and she saw his jaw tighten just a little, his gaze holding hers. The moment was brief, but its effect lingered. After Jessica left, Ethan leaned in, lowering his voice. "Would you like to see the new music room? I could use a second opinion on the decor." Lillian's pulse quickened. She nodded, following him down the hallway, their steps quiet on the polished floor. The music room was empty, sunlight slanting in, dust motes swirling in the air. Ethan closed the door softly behind them. He stood just a bit closer than necessary. "So what do you think?" he asked, gesturing around. His voice was almost teasing. "It's lovely," Lillian replied, noticing the posters on the walls and the neat rows of chairs. But her attention was entirely on him. The strong line of his jaw, the play of light on his arms, the warmth of his presence. There was a moment of silence. Ethan met her gaze, his eyes darkening with a quiet intensity. "You look beautiful today," he said, his voice soft, almost reverent. Lillian felt a rush of heat color her cheeks. She laughed, a little breathless, her hands fidgeting with the hem of her blouse. He stepped closer, so close she could feel the warmth of his body. His hand brushed her arm, his fingers tracing lightly over her skin. The air between them thickened, their breaths mingling. For a heartbeat, Lillian felt the world slip away. The school, her marriage, everything except the yearning in Ethan's eyes. He leaned in, and for an instant, Lillian thought he might kiss her. Instead, his lips barely grazed her temple, and his hand lingered at her waist. She felt the delicate lace of her bra press against her skin, her heart fluttering. A noise from the hallway snapped them apart. Lillian straightened her blouse, her face burning, as Ethan gave her a reassuring smile. "We should go," he whispered. They left the room, but Lillian's body was alive with sensation, her mind spinning. As she walked out, she noticed a shadow at the end of the hall. Jessica, watching with a knowing look. That night, Lillian lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She replayed every second in the music room, the nearness of Ethan, the gentle intimacy of his touch. She felt both exhilarated and guilty, wanting more but terrified of the consequences. At school, the whispers began. Lillian overheard two mothers in the parking lot, their voices low and speculative. "Have you noticed how often Lillian Carter is here lately?" one asked. "Oh, definitely. And always right around Mr. Turner's planning period," the other replied with a smirk. Lillian pretended not to hear, but her cheeks burned. She wondered if she was imagining the glances from other teachers, the slightly raised eyebrows, the hushed laughter. Still, she could not stay away. Every time she looked in the mirror, she saw something new in herself. A spark, a flush in her cheeks, a secretive smile. Ethan, too, became bolder in small ways. He would linger near her, his hand occasionally brushing hers, his gaze holding hers longer than was strictly proper. He started sending her brief messages. Harmless, perhaps, but charged with meaning. "Thank you for your opinion today. The room feels warmer already. You make the school brighter every time you visit." Each message left her heart racing. She responded with playful replies, allowing herself a private world of secrets and longing. The next week, Emily forgot her jacket, and Lillian found herself at the school once again. She wore a simple, fitted black dress, her hair in a loose braid, the same pale rose lingerie beneath. She caught sight of herself in the glass door and smiled, her confidence growing with each visit. This time, Ethan met her at the entrance. "You're becoming a regular," he joked, his smile wide. "Maybe I just like good company," she replied, her tone light. They walked together to Emily's class, their conversation easy and natural, but charged with undercurrents neither could ignore. Afterwards, they lingered by the lockers. The hallway was empty. Ethan reached out, brushing a loose strand of hair from Lillian's face. His fingers were gentle, his touch reverent. For a moment, the world slowed. He leaned closer, his breath warm against her ear. "I think about you more than I should," he whispered. Their hands met, fingers entwined, hearts pounding. The moment was intoxicating, dangerous and sweet, a promise of more to come. As Lillian left the school, she caught Jessica's gaze through the window, sharp, knowing, perhaps even jealous. A shiver of uncertainty mingled with her excitement. The intrigue was growing. Lillian sensed she was being watched, judged, and perhaps even envied. But she could not stop. The line between innocent flirtation and something more had blurred, and she wanted, desperately, to know where it might lead. The weeks flowed by, each day carrying a new pulse of excitement and unease. The school was alive with its usual autumn bustle, but for Lillian, the world had tilted, become unpredictable and thrilling. She had become addicted to the moments she spent near Ethan. His voice, his smile, the unspoken words shimmering in the air between them. One Friday morning, a note from the school invited all parents to a special evening event, a talent show organized by Ethan Turner. It was a perfect, public reason to see him again. Lillian's heart fluttered as she helped Emily prepare for her small performance. James, as always, was supportive, sitting at the kitchen table and beaming at his daughter. That evening, Lillian chose her outfit with care. She wore a soft cream blouse, the neckline gently revealing her collarbones, and a wine-red pencil skirt that hugged her hips. Her lingerie was the same lace set, this time in dark red, giving her a feeling of daring confidence. Her hair fell in relaxed waves down her back, and she added a touch of red lipstick for courage. The school gymnasium was full of excited chatter. Parents milled about in their best clothes. Teachers bustled between last-minute preparations, and the stage glowed under colored lights. Lillian noticed Jessica almost immediately. She wore a tight emerald dress, her curves perfectly outlined, her dark hair pulled into a polished chignon. Jessica greeted her with a smile, but her eyes held a hint of mischief. Emily's performance was a success, and as applause echoed through the hall, Lillian's gaze found Ethan. He was near the stage, wearing a deep blue shirt and black slacks, the lines of his body confident and relaxed. Their eyes met across the crowd, and Lillian felt a jolt of electricity pass through her. He smiled, just for her, it seemed. After the event, Ethan lingered in the hallway, talking with a few parents. As James took Emily to get a cupcake, Lillian excused herself and approached Ethan, her pulse quickening. "You did a wonderful job tonight," she said, her voice low. "Thank you," he replied, his eyes softening. "But you are the real star tonight." His words sent a shiver up her spine. For a fleeting moment, they stood close, alone in the quiet hallway. Lillian could sense the tension between them, a magnet pulling them together. Suddenly, the heavy door at the end of the hall swung open. James appeared, carrying 2 paper cups of punch, a smile on his face. Lillian stepped back quickly, her cheeks flushing as Ethan nodded politely. "There you are," James said, handing Lillian a cup. He didn't seem to notice the charged atmosphere, but Lillian's heart hammered in her chest. Jessica's voice rang out from behind, light and teasing. "Careful, Lillian, or Mr. Turner might steal you away with his charm." James laughed, but Lillian caught the briefest flicker of confusion in his eyes. She smiled, willing herself to act natural, but she could feel the heat of Ethan's gaze even after they parted. Later that evening, as the crowd thinned, Ethan found her again near the gym's back door. The corridor was dim and quiet, the sound of laughter muffled by distance. He stepped close, so close she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "I needed to see you," he whispered, his voice barely audible. Before she could reply, he pressed his lips to hers, soft, tentative, but quickly deepening. His hands found her waist, pulling her close, her body melting into his. Lillian's hand slid up his chest, feeling the rapid thump of his heart. His lips moved to her neck, gentle, urgent. She tasted danger, excitement, and longing, all tangled together. For a brief, dizzying moment, the world fell away. They broke apart, breathless, footsteps echoing down the hall. Someone was coming. Lillian smoothed her blouse, tried to steady her breath, and ducked out just as Jessica rounded the corner, her eyes sharp and questioning. "Are you all right?" Jessica asked, her voice laced with meaning. Lillian forced a smile. "Just a little overwhelmed. The night has been intense." Jessica tilted her head, her gaze lingering a moment longer before moving on. Lillian slipped out into the cool night, her heart racing, her mind spinning. She had kissed Ethan, truly kissed him, and the world had not ended. But the danger was real now. There were eyes everywhere, and secrets never stayed hidden for long. That night at home, James reached for her as they got ready for bed. His hands were gentle, his kisses familiar. Lillian responded, but in her mind, the echo of Ethan's touch lingered. She tried to push the guilt away, tried to lose herself in the safety of her husband's arms. Afterwards, she lay awake, her thoughts restless. She remembered the moment in the hallway, the brush of Ethan's lips, the rush of emotion, and she realized that for the first time in years, she didn't know what tomorrow would bring. The risk had become real, and Lillian was standing at the edge, uncertain whether to step back or fall. The weekend passed in a blur of restless thoughts and stolen glances. Lillian tried to lose herself in routine. Grocery shopping, laundry, reading with Emily on the living room rug. Yet her mind kept circling back to that hallway. The sweetness and daring of Ethan's kiss. The heat of his body pressed against hers, and the ever-present fear of discovery. Monday arrived with a drizzle of rain, blurring the world outside her window. Lillian sipped her coffee, distracted, her fingers tracing the rim of her mug. The uncertainty inside her had grown, no longer just a thrill, but a sharp edge of anxiety. She felt as if someone was watching her, waiting for her to make a mistake. At the school gate, Jessica approached, umbrella in hand, her eyes studying Lillian with a peculiar intensity. "Rough weekend?" Jessica asked, her voice casual, but her gaze penetrating. "Just the usual chaos," Lillian replied lightly, but her heart hammered in her chest. Jessica hesitated, then leaned in. "You know, people notice things. Just be careful." There was something almost kind in her voice, but it sent a shiver down Lillian's spine. Inside the school, the atmosphere felt charged. Lillian delivered Emily's forgotten art project, but she was barely out of the office before she found a small note tucked into her coat pocket. The handwriting was unfamiliar, angular and precise. "Some secrets are better kept. Be careful, Lillian." A chill raced through her. Who had left the note? Her eyes darted around the hallway, but everyone looked busy, innocent. She couldn't shake the feeling of being observed, as if eyes followed her every move. She didn't see Ethan that day, but his absence made her even more restless. Was he avoiding her? Did he regret what had happened between them? That evening, Lillian tried to be present at home. She cooked dinner, laughed at Emily's stories, and curled up on the couch with James to watch a movie. But even in the comfort of her family, she felt uneasy, her mind returning to the mysterious note and Ethan's distance. Later, as she got ready for bed, James came up behind her, slipping his arms around her waist. His touch was soft, loving, but different, more searching than before. Lillian looked at them together in the mirror. Her own reflection, still beautiful, lips parted, cheeks flushed. James behind her, his eyes warm but concerned. He kissed her shoulder, his hands traveling lightly down her sides. There was a tenderness in the way he undressed her, fingertips tracing the edge of her pale silk lingerie. Lillian shivered, torn between guilt and longing. As James lay her gently back on the bed, his mouth exploring her skin, she tried to let herself be present, feeling his lips, his hands, the heat of his body pressing hers into the mattress. For a moment, she surrendered to the sensations, wanting to remember what it felt like to be desired by him, wanting to recapture the intimacy they had lost in their daily routine. Afterwards, James lay quietly beside her, running his hand down her arm. "You've been distracted lately," he said softly. "Is everything all right?" Lillian hesitated. "Just tired. I think I need some time for myself." James kissed her forehead, but she could feel his worry lingering. She knew she was hurting him, and the weight of it pressed on her chest. The next day, Lillian returned to the school with a new determination to talk to Ethan. She dressed simply, fitted jeans and a white blouse, her hair in a loose ponytail, minimal makeup. She didn't want to draw attention, but she needed answers. When she finally found Ethan alone in the music room, he looked up with a tired smile. "Lillian, I'm sorry. Things have gotten complicated." "What's going on?" she asked, voice trembling. "Did someone say something?" He nodded, rubbing his hand across the back of his neck. "There are rumors, notes in my mailbox. Someone is watching us. I don't want you to get hurt." Fear twisted in Lillian's stomach. What should we do? Ethan met her gaze, his eyes shadowed. "We need to be careful. Maybe we should stop meeting like this, for now." Lillian felt both relief and heartbreak. She wanted him, wanted the excitement and the escape, but she could not risk her family or his career. Their conversation lingered, filled with quiet longing. They did not touch, but the air between them was thick with all the things they could not say. Every word, every look was charged with emotion. Lillian left the room with tears pricking her eyes, her heart aching for what might have been. That afternoon, another note appeared in her mailbox at home. This one was even more cryptic. "I know what you are doing. Secrets always come out in the end." Lillian stood on her porch, the paper trembling in her hands. The mystery deepened, a sense of danger swirling in the air. Someone was watching. You. And as the sky darkened, Lillian realized she was not just at risk of losing herself, but of losing everything. The atmosphere in Lillian's world grew heavier with each passing day. She moved through her routine, making breakfast, walking Emily to school, sharing quiet evenings with James. but she felt as if she were underwater, each action muffled by the pressure of secrets. She watched herself in the mirror and wondered when she had become someone with so much to hide. The notes continued to arrive. One slipped through the gap in her car window while she picked up groceries. Another was left under her windshield wiper in the school parking lot. Its message scrawled in the same angular hand. It only takes one careless moment for everything to change. Lillian's nerves were fraying. She jumped at small noises and found herself looking over her shoulder. At home, James's concern turned to suspicion. He watched her more closely, his questions more pointed. "Is there something you want to tell me?" he asked one evening as they cleaned up after dinner. Lillian forced a smile. "Just work stress, I promise." But she could feel him pulling away, a slow drifting, as if the unspoken truth was building a wall between them. School had become a place of tension rather than escape. Jessica, once friendly and playful, now seemed to watch Lillian with an edge of rivalry, her tone sharper in every exchange. At the same time, a new figure entered the picture. Caroline, the mother of one of Emily's classmates. Caroline was tall and willowy, with chestnut curls, dark brown eyes, and a graceful air. Her clothing was always tasteful. Flowy skirts, soft cashmere sweaters, hinting at subtle curves beneath. Her smile was warm, but Lillian sensed an intensity beneath her calm exterior. Rumors simmered in the air, barely concealed by polite conversation. Lillian overheard fragments in the hallway. "Heard she's here all the time and not just for her daughter. Mr. Turner's been acting strange lately, don't you think? Maybe someone should say something to the principal." The walls felt like they were closing in. Lillian tried to avoid Ethan, but the longing remained, burning quietly within her. One afternoon, she found him in the staff parking lot as the sky turned a soft pink. He was leaning against his car, hands shoved in his pockets, looking troubled. She hesitated, but Ethan saw her and managed a weary smile. "You got another note, didn't you?" She nodded, her voice trembling. "I'm scared, Ethan. I do not know who is doing this or what they want." He stepped closer, concern etched across his face. "I'm sorry. I never wanted you to get caught in the middle. Maybe we made a mistake." Lillian's eyes filled with tears. Was it a mistake? Or just bad luck? For a moment, the world shrank to just the two of them. Ethan reached out, taking her hand in his thumb tracing gentle circles on her skin. The touch was full of tenderness and longing, a reminder of all the moments they had risked for one another. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly, his lips brushing her hair. In the shadow of the car, they clung to each other, desperate, breathless, hearts pounding. His lips found hers, soft and searching, and Lillian melted into the embrace. Their bodies pressed close, his hands slipping beneath her sweater to caress her bare waist. She shivered as his fingers traced the delicate line of her lingerie, her breath catching. There was urgency in their closeness, a need to find comfort in each other before the world tore them apart. They broke apart only when headlights flashed across the lot, the spell broken, the risk suddenly too real. That evening, James confronted her as soon as she walked through the door. He stood in the kitchen, arms crossed, his face tight with worry and anger. I saw you, he whirred quietly. I saw you with him. Do you love him, Lillian? She froze, her mind spinning. For a moment, she considered denying everything. But James's eyes held hers, and she saw how much pain she had caused. I do not know what I feel, she whispered. I'm confused. I am sorry. James's expression softened, but his voice was hollow. How could you? Was our life not enough? Tears streamed down Lillian's cheeks. I did not mean for any of this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you. They stood there in silence, the distance between them greater than it had ever been. At school, things grew even more complicated. Caroline approached Lillian near the playground. Her smile too careful. Are you all right? Caroline asked gently. Lillian hesitated, then nodded. It has just been a difficult week. Caroline's gaze sharpened. You know, sometimes people do things they regret because they feel unseen. But secrets have a way of coming out. If you ever need to talk, I am here. Her words hung in the air like a warning and a promise. Rumors swirled. Jessica was cold now, barely speaking to Lillian. Other parents eyed her with a mix of curiosity and judgment. Lillian realized she was alone in a way she had never been before. The final blow came when a copy of one of the notes was slipped into the principal's office. Suddenly, Lillian was called in for a quiet, uncomfortable meeting. She denied everything, of course, but the sense of exposure was overwhelming. At home, James kept his distance. He moved through the motions, caring for Emily, sleeping on the edge of the bed. Every night, Lillian wished she could turn back time, wished for forgiveness, for understanding. Yet, even now, her heart ached with longing for Ethan. The thrill, the possibility, the freedom she had tasted in his arms. She knew the truth had come out, but the conflict within her was unresolved. Her life was no longer safe or predictable. It was a storm, and she could only hope to find her way through before she lost everything. A tense quiet settled over Lillian's life, as if the whole world were holding its breath. Days moved slowly, marked by routine, but filled with silent questions. James and Lillian circled each other like strangers, trying to protect Emily from the cracks spreading in their home. At school, every glance and every hushed whisper felt loaded with accusation. Lillian's thoughts whirled. Who was behind the notes? Was it Jessica, with her sharp eyes and quick judgments? Or perhaps Caroline, whose friendly concern now seemed almost too persistent? Lillian even wondered if it was someone she barely knew. A secretary, a parent, a jealous colleague. She was tired of secrets, tired of fear, and above all, tired of waiting for the next blow to fall. Then, one grey Thursday, the mystery finally unraveled. Emily had forgotten her lunchbox, so Lillian returned to the school after noon. As she walked through the main corridor, she saw Caroline and Jessica deep in conversation by the office, their voices low but animated. Something about their posture, tense, conspiratorial, caught Lillian's attention. She paused out of sight and listened. I did not mean for it to go this far, Jessica whispered, her tone anxious. She is not a bad person. Caroline's reply was colder. She crossed a line. Someone had to do something. You were right to tell me, but I was the one who warned her. She needed to be scared. Lillian felt a chill crawl down her spine. It was Caroline, the friendliest face, the warmest voice, who had been watching, judging, and threatening her from the shadows. Jessica, it seemed, had only fanned the flames, out of jealousy or boredom. The realization was both shocking and strangely relieving. At last, the faceless threat had a name. She stepped into view, startling both women. "How could you?" Lillian asked, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. Caroline stiffened but did not look away. "I did what I thought was best. This is a small world, Lillian. Actions have consequences." Jessica flushed, her confidence crumbling. "I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I just thought maybe if you stopped seeing him, things would go back to normal." Lillian's hands trembled, but she found a new strength in her voice. "You could have talked to me. Instead, you chose threats and rumors. What happened between me and Ethan was my mistake, not yours to punish." Caroline's eyes narrowed, but she said nothing more. Jessica looked as if she might cry. Lillian turned away, feeling lighter, the secret exposed at last. After the confrontation, Lillian went straight to the principal's office and told the truth. Not all the intimate details, but enough to stop the rumors and end the campaign of fear. The principal, a kind but firm woman, listened and agreed to speak to Caroline and Jessica. Lillian knew she had risked her reputation, but she could no longer live in the shadows of other people's judgments. That evening, at home, Lillian found James in the garden, trimming hedges with slow, methodical movements. She joined him, unsure how to begin. The air between them was thick, with everything unspoken. Finally, she said, "I need to tell you the truth, all of it." They sat together on the porch as the sun set, painting the sky in soft gold and pink. Lillian told him about Ethan, about the longing and loneliness that had made her reckless. She did not spare herself, nor did she hide her remorse. James listened in silence, then finally took her hand. "Thank you for telling me. I wish I could say it does not hurt, but I would rather have the truth than live with doubt." They talked late into the evening. There were tears, apologies, and moments of raw honesty. When Emily joined them with a book, James lifted her onto his lap and kissed Lillian softly on the cheek. A small gesture, but one filled with hope. That night, in the privacy of their bedroom, Lillian and James reached for each other. The closeness was cautious at first, as if relearning how to trust. James's hands moved gently along her waist, fingers slipping under her soft cotton nightgown. Lillian closed her eyes, letting herself be held, feeling the warmth of his skin, the familiar shape of his body. Their lovemaking was slow and tender, not urgent like before, but healing, a promise to try, to forgive, to find each other again. In the days that followed, Lillian felt the world begin to right itself. The rumors died down, and with the truth out in the open, the whispers lost their power. Ethan Turner quietly transferred to another school. Their last conversation was brief, bittersweet. A goodbye, filled with gratitude for what they had shared and acceptance that it could not continue. Jessica sent Lillian a handwritten note of apology. Caroline avoided her in the halls, the former friendship reduced to polite nods. Lillian missed what she had lost, but felt, in a way, she had gained something more. The courage to own her choices, and the strength to forgive herself. Life did not return to what it was before. In some ways, it was better. Lillian and James talked more, touched more, let themselves be vulnerable in ways they never had. Their marriage was not perfect, but it was real. On the last day of the school, Lillian and James walked hand in hand to the school festival. Emily ran ahead to join her friends, her laughter floating through the air. Lillian glanced at James, who squeezed her hand and smiled. The sun shone warm and bright, and for the first time in a long time, Lillian felt whole.